Oh, no surprises. We talked going into this draft that there could be all kinds of surprises. And when all is said and done, they picked the guy that probably by the time we got to this point, at least 75% of mock drafts had Danny Shelton going to Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing for cleveland.com saying it's not a sexy pick, but if you're Mike Pettin, you're a defensive head coach, and your team finished 32nd against the run, it probably feels pretty sexy to you right now to know you can plug a guy in there and not have, he doesn't have to do anything that he hasn't already shown he can do. You're not asking him to become a pass rusher like they were asking Mingo to become, and to develop more pass rushing moves. We know what this guy brings, and we know he can bring it, if not 3 downs, at least the first 2 downs.
Yeah, there is that pesky problem about him maybe not being a 3-down player. But again, when you're picking 12th, that's going to happen. You're not going to get the perfect prospect, even in the NFL.
Well,
There's just not enough guys.
I know I heard you guys talk about some of the running backs that, had big days against them, and it was pretty startling. The game that really jumped out at me last year, and I was at all of them, was the Denard Robinson game.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no reason that he should be able to run between the tackles the way he did. And that was, if that didn't convince them right then and there that they were gone with this pick, in this draft, I'm not sure what would have.
And you saw what it did to that team, too. I think that was the other thing about that, because I was there as well. Mm-hmm. And Denard Robinson, that was the first time he'd ever rushed for 100 yards. Yeah. Obviously a converted quarterback. And it was coming off a big win. And everybody's feeling good about the Browns.
Sure.
I pretty much everyone had picked the Browns to win that game. Denard Robinson runs all over him, and I think that gave everyone pause a little bit. Yeah. Like, hey, this run defense is enough of a problem that it takes what could be a good team and turns them into an average or below average.
I'm preparing people for the possibility now. I'm not predicting this, but that when Ray Farmer gets to 19, he's going to look and see a wide receiver who's got a reputation for dropping balls. And he's going to see either another defensive tackle or an offensive tackle that he likes. And he's going to come away from here with 2 picks that most people are going to scratch their head and say, how are they going to score touchdowns?
It's true.
And it'll be a legitimate question, but he's given us these hints all along that this is the way what he believes in.
Yeah. Was this a Ray Farmer pick or a Mike Pettin pick?
Or
both?
I started to write that too. I think it was both. I think it fit Pettin's need and desire, but it fit Farmer's sensibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just what he believes is the way you do it, and it's hard to argue that when you're down as far as they were and trying to stop the run. I mean, we're not talking about a team that was middle of the league and has just decided to, or the Jets who already have a strong defensive line and planned on building it up even stronger. So I think it's really hard to argue. You could say he should have gone for wide receiver there and filled his need on the defensive line later, but I like the pick.
And we are going to say that. At some point during the season, we're going to say, man, I wish they would have taken a wide receiver.
Probably during the preseason.
And we might be wrong about that, because Danny Shelton might be really good, but again, he's not going to do a ton of things that make you go, wow, that was incredible. He's gonna clog up the middle. Every now and again, he's going to get those arms on a running back. He might get to the quarterback every now and again.
I think he had, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think he had more sacks in college this past season than was expected of him. But it's still, that's a big jump to expect a guy to do that in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. This pick, and then we'll see what they do with the 19th pick. If they go offensive line at 19, it feels like a pick of a GM that feels comfortable with his job.
Yeah.
That's looking ahead a little bit. But if Ray Farmer really, truly believed that, this was, I got to nail this or I'm done, I don't know if he's going Danny Shelton. I think he's maybe trying to make that sexy pick.
Well, I think if they could have pulled off the Mariota, and we'll never probably know what they offered, but that one seemed to me like something that would buy him some time, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if he delivered Jimmy Haslam his franchise quarterback, it'd be a little hard to then hold him accountable for other holes on the team. So, he's addressing, I think he still has to hit big in this first round, whether the picks were bold or sexy or what. I think he still has to really hit on them, because if Jimmy Haslam looks up a year from now and he sees 4 first-round draft picks that are having trouble getting on the field, it's not going to be well. It's not going to go well for this guy.
The good news is, you hope that with Danny Shelton, you got a guy that is going to give you more than Justin Gilbert gave you last year. And it sure feels like it. There's always a little concern when you take a big guy at number 12 and pay him a lot of money. You never know how that's going to work out.
Especially a big guy that's had, we saw it with Sean Rogers when he was here, a big guy that has had trouble keeping, not that he wants to keep weight off, but he also doesn't want to be, 375 pounds either. And this guy, I did a post on why they should take Shelton and Perryman. And I attached the video from his pro day, from Shelton's pro day. And he does not look like a fit man. And I understand that guys that are playing nose tackle don't necessarily have to look like Adonis, but you'd like to think that, he's a good character guy. Coaches have raved about him, but you'd really like to watch this guy and make sure that he's physically able to stay on the field for as many plays as they want him to.
And that's music to the Browns' ears. That's music to fans' ears as well. Good character guy.
Yeah.
Because again, they showed it on the screen before the Browns pick. The quarterback was in rehab. Your other first-round pick last year was dealing with personal issues. Yeah. You need a guy like that.
So the question I think then becomes and he probably won't be there, but talk about a good character guy, Malcolm Brown, right?
Yeah.
He answers all those questions. They wouldn't go 2 guys on the defensive line, would they? Chris, would they?
Chris is just shaking his head. If they end up going defensive line, offensive line, I'm not a fan of offensive line in the first round, but that's okay, right? That's a draft that you come away with. You wake up tomorrow and you're like, maybe you shrug your shoulders at it, but you feel like you have a better football team.
Yeah,
right?
Certainly it's harder to second guess than it is to go a fast climbing wide receiver with questionable hands. But that may be what they need is a guy who, not maybe, what they need is a guy who can blow the top off a defense, and that's what Perryman can do. So the question becomes, if both are sitting there, how bold do they want to be? I would think that he's going to stick with his board, and if Brown is a higher rated player, he'll take Brown.
What I hope is that somewhere in these last 2 years, in these 4 first-round picks,
that somebody can play?
Bowler. Well, somebody can play. I hope they find a Pro Bowler.
Oh, yeah, now that's a pretty lofty goal.
If you have 4 first-round picks, you should find at least 1 Pro Bowler,
Yeah,
right?
you should, absolutely.
Okay, so Danny Shelton's the pick. I think a lot of people are okay with that. I think Bud Shaw is okay with that.
Sure.
I think Chris Fedor is okay with that. I know that he's still kind of trying to get over the Todd Gurley thing.
We know you're not really okay with that. But
I can live with it. I wanted a wide receiver if they weren't going to get the quarterback. I guess I'm a sucker for the so-called sexy pick. We're going to send it back over now to the desk and Chris Fedor.
Yeah, Andrus Peat, guys, goes to the New Orleans Saints. Following the script, it seems like the teams that have good quarterbacks have made an effort to protect them.
What a concept.
What a concept, huh? Washington taking Brandon Scherf at number 5. Eric Flowers goes number 9 to the New York Giants to protect Eli Manning. And now Andrus Peat, a dancing bear of an offensive lineman, goes number 13 to the New Orleans Saints. A guy who gave up 9 total pressures all of last season despite playing in the Pac-12. So it looks like Drew Brees is going to be a little bit more comfortable in New Orleans. So now, Dan, it shifts to the Miami Dolphins, and you're thinking Devontae Parker maybe here.
I just wonder if they want to get Ryan Tannehill.
Hello. Yeah, that would make some sense, wouldn't it?
And hey, there you go. Devontae Parker is the pick.
Oh, there it is, yeah. Wow.
So Devontae Parker goes to Miami. He is off the board now, following Andrus Peat to the Saints. Pete was a guy that I had also seen in mock drafts going to the Browns at 19. So he goes off the board at 13, and that 19th pick gets a little more intriguing. Listen, if they're going to go wide receiver, it's probably going to be Perriman, right?
Or Aguilar.
No, that's true.
Both guys can really take the top off of defense.
And if you watch highlights of him,
yep.
Oh, man.
Aguilar?
Yeah, you think that thing isn't fast forward sometimes.
He's quick, he's shifty, he understands how to get open, he's precise. And here's the other thing, Dan. You talked about the special teams issues that the Browns had last year. Justin Gilbert, fielding punts. Nelson Aguilar, 4 returns for a touchdown in his career. at USC.
So this is going to be San Diego making this pick.
Oh.
San Francisco has traded, so they get 17. They get a 4th-round pick this year. They get a 5th-round pick next year. So that's what San Diego gives up to move up 2 slots into the 15th spot as they make a trade with San Francisco.
One of 2 things, I think, for San Diego here. Number 1, they wanted to move in front of the Houston Texans there at number 16 to take Melvin Gordon. That could be a possibility. San Diego was 30th in running last year. So they have Phillip Rivers, and they've got him. He controls the offense. But if you want to take pressure off of a guy who's going to be 34 years old this season, one way to do that is certainly with a running game. Or you could take an offensive lineman. That's another way to help out your running game. Create bigger holes for whoever that running back is going to be. But Ryan Matthews is now in Philadelphia. Chip Kelly went out, brought him in the offseason along with DeMarco Murray. So I would say either Melvin Gordon here, Dan, or one of these offensive linemen, although it might be a little bit too early for DJ Humphries or TJ Clemmings or Cedric Obihi.
We'll see. Who does San Diego want?
I think it's going to be Melvin Gordon.
You think?
I do, yeah.
Wow.
30th when it comes to running the football, and you got a 33 going to be 34-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, you got to make that move to support him, especially if you're going to commit to him, and he's coming up on free agency. They want to get him to sign an extension. So that becomes, go get him a running back. See what you can get out of Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's you got to look at who some of these teams are moving in front of, and why would they move in front of those teams? Why would the San Diego Chargers move in front of Houston? Because Houston has an aging running back in Arian Foster, and they could be interested in Melvin Gordon to be their running back of the future. But I think we're seeing also a shift here in the NFL, Dan. I mean, think about this. You've got Brandon Scherf already off the board. You've got Flowers off the board. You've got Andrus Peat. You have a running back in the top 10. And you've got a run stuffer at number 12, Cleveland Browns taking Shelton. Teams are more focused now on trying to stop the whole ground and pound of the Seattle Seahawks of recent memory, right?
It's interesting because the NFL obviously is becoming known as a passing league. Then a team gets really good running the ball. And all of a sudden, a whole division decides that they need to try and stop that. It's always interesting to kind of see how the NFL morphs based on who's good and when, and the teams that kind of scramble to get after stopping them.
And I think if this is Melvin Gordon for San Diego, and I don't know if the pick's in or not, is it Melvin Gordon?
It is Melvin Gordon.
I think that hurts the Browns. I think the Browns were hoping to add either Todd Gurley or Melvin Gordon. We'll never know. Ray Farmer will never admit it. But I think given their quarterback situation and just the overall philosophy, think about it, Dan. What have they stated? They want to be tough. They want to be physical. They want to run the ball and play great defense. Danny Shelton was the defensive anchor. He's the guy that's going to help you stop the run. Well, the other part of that philosophy, run the ball, you don't have a guy to do that right now. You don't have a foundation back. So I really think that the Browns felt like they could have waited on Melvin Gordon at number 19, but San Diego moves right up in front of them, and I think this hurts the Browns.
Although I wonder because, the Browns were interested in Melvin Gordon. I just saw a tweet about that. And I wonder if San Diego maybe, heard some rumblings that the Browns were maybe thinking about moving up.
It's possible.
They do have those 10 picks.
Yes.
Well, 9 picks now.
Well, it's not only that. It's they know the Browns general manager, Ray Farmer, is an aggressive guy.
Yeah.
So you have to take those things into account. He moved up for Terrence West last year because he wanted him.
That's true.
He moved up for Justin Gilbert last year because he wanted him. If you know the Browns are an aggressive team by nature, you have to be aggressive first. You have to beat them to the punch.
Moved down and then moved up for Gilbert, moved up for Manziel, moved up for Terrence West.
Right.
The book's out on Ray Farmer. You didn't have a book on Ray Farmer last year. You do have a book on him now. And, that's a good thing, though, for teams to maybe fear you a little bit because now maybe they start to give up some assets and they might get your guy every now and again. but it kind of gives you a chance to kind of hold that poker face that Ray Farmer is so good at. A guy, though, that the Browns maybe would have taken at 19, Melvin Gordon. I know a lot of our commenters like Melvin Gordon. I know Terry Pluto liked Melvin Gordon. Is it going to be Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West in that backfield this year? Or is there another running back late in the draft that they can go out and add to that stable?
I've already mentioned, Dan, that I think there's an enormous gap here after these top two guys, and that's why you saw two running backs go top 15, because they have separated themselves from the pack. But if there's somebody else that I like, that I think could be really successful at the next level, I'm looking at TJ Yeldon from Alabama. He's got some fumbling issues. I understand those things. He's got some injuries. I understand those things as well. But he reminds me of DeMarco Murray. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He's really smooth. He's shifty. He can make you miss. He runs upright like DeMarco Murray. He's just somebody who, just like Todd Gurley and just like Melvin Gordon, Dan, can pick up more than what's blocked. And I think that's very, very important.
I want to go back to Danny Shelton because I've noticed a couple tweets about this, and I want to know what you think.
The Browns took a guy who wears a skirt.
One of our commenters said that...
I'm not going to say that to Danny Shelton, trust me.
No,
He'll break me.
Well, one of our commenters said something along the lines of he couldn't find a suit because all the tent makers were closed for the winter.
He doesn't shop at big and tall. He shops at really big and tall.
He shops at the tarp store. I've heard a lot of people reference the year that the Browns decided not to pick Haloti Ngata. Is there any comparison there? Are they comparable?
I don't think so. I see more of like a Vince Wilfork type guy when I watch Danny Shelton play.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll take that, sure. Haloti Ngata, to me, what made him so special, Dan, is he played all three downs. Just like he could get after the quarterback, he could stop the run, and he could also cover. How many defensive tackles do you see that drop into the passing lanes? Haloti Ngata was a rare guy from that standpoint. I just don't think Danny Shelton is that kind of guy. I think he's more than just a run stuffer because he can push the pocket up the middle. But I certainly don't think he's got the flexibility, the movement skills, the athleticism that Haloti Ngata has. I think he was built in some kind of factory. I mean, Mike, how many guys do what he does?
Oh, that draft.
Cameron Wembley?
Yeah. Who was okay. He was a marginal NFL player.
He had his best year with the Browns, and then his second best year came in like Tennessee or something like that. You never want that to happen.
Oakland for a while?
Yeah,
something like that. All right, Houston, San Francisco, Kansas City, then Cleveland. In the comments, someone calling San Francisco, they're going to take Bud, as they say it, B-U-U-U-D. So they believe that he will be off the board by the time the Browns go 19. Philip Dorsett's name has come up. Len Will saying the Browns won't draft him, but Philip Dorsett will be a star in this league. A response, maybe next round. First of all, could he be a star in the league? Second of all, could he be available in the next round?
Philip Dorsett?
Yes.
You know, Dan, you have enough wide receivers, in my opinion, that are under 6'1". You have enough. You've got Taylor Gabriel. You've got Andrew Hawkins. I think if the Browns want to find a wide receiver that they don't have currently on the roster, or somebody who can do things different from the guys that are already on the roster, look, I know they're not going to take this guy. I understand that. But you're talking about Dorial Green-Beckham. You're talking about Nelson Aguilar. And you're talking about Brashad Perriman. I think you already have Philip Dorsett on the roster. I think his name is Andrew Hawkins.
And he's good. You know, it's not like
explosive,
you need to replace Andrew
shifty,
Hawkins.
fast. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He's a hard worker. You paid him a lot of money. You stick with what you have there. The more and more I think about it, I don't know. What if they go offensive line there? Is that a real possibility? Do you think do you think the Browns can go defensive line, offensive line?
Oh, sure, because it fits their philosophy. It fits their mantra. They want to be tough. They want to be physical. They want to build in the trenches. They want to run the ball and play great defense. if you can't get a running back, and you can't because Gurley and Gordon are both gone, you've got to beef up that offensive line so that you make it easier for Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West. So could they go with an offensive lineman? Sure. But I just think there's so much uncertainty at that spot right now because you're talking about Flowers being gone, Scherf being gone, Pete being gone. Now you're talking about Clemmings maybe, Fisher maybe. You're not going to take the chance on Collins. I don't think so. I don't think the Browns would get that risky. So that's an option. Pass rusher's an option. And here's another wild card offensive lineman, Cam Irving from Florida State. I think he's the best one left.
I saw him. I think it was Jeremy Fowler who did that NFL Nation draft, and that's who he took for the Browns at 19.
And here's why, Dan. We're talking about a guy who started his career at Florida State as a defensive tackle. Then he moves to guard. Then he moves to offensive tackle. Then he moves to center. As an offensive tackle, he was one of the best offensive tackles in America. As a center, he was one of the best centers in America. So you could start him at offensive tackle, put him on the right side, replace Mitchell Schwartz. If Alex Mack leaves, and he's got a unique contract, he can opt out of his contract at the end of this year, and the Browns cannot franchise tag him. So if he doesn't like the direction of the team, if he doesn't believe in the vision, then you're talking about somebody who can help you year one at right tackle in Irving, and he can also be your future center, and he could be as good as Alex Mack. I know it's hard because Alex Mack is one of the best centers in the NFL, but this kid Irving, he has success no matter what position he plays.
And we saw what losing Alex Mack did to this offensive line. It had a domino effect that they just could never quite get over. Hey, T-Bone's Red Strat, you're saying that if Shelton turns out to be the stud you feel he will, you're going to start wearing a dress also. That's now on the video. So now it's not just the people that saw that in the comments. We said it, we saw it, we are going to hold you to that. So be careful what you comment. We're following along as we go. Lenwell again, Dorsett is a game changer, elite speed and elusiveness. Again, that size though, like you said, you've got Hawkins, you've got Gabriel. You do need somebody big.
Yeah, I think if you're going to add a wide receiver, it has to be a guy with traits that you don't currently have. It's the same thing with Danny Shelton. If you're going to add Shelton, you look for him because he brings you traits that you don't have. You're not going to add, in my opinion, you're not going to add a guy like Malcolm Brown, who's more of a move defensive lineman, who's more of a versatile defensive lineman. You have a guy like that in Phil Taylor. You have a guy like that in Desmond Bryant. You have a guy like that in Starks, who they brought over this offseason. So I think the goal is to find guys that you don't already have, or guys with skills that your guys on the roster don't possess. And Dorsett's too much like the wide receivers on this team. Jalen Strong, by the way, is another one from Arizona State. You don't have a guy like Jalen Strong on this roster.
Kevin Johnson, cornerback from Wake Forest, goes to Houston.
Okay.
That's at number 16. So now San Francisco, we are awaiting their pick. I'm also seeing some tweets that number 19 could be available.
Yeah, of course it could.
Which again, you got 9 picks. So maybe they're starting to look towards. I hate to say this, but maybe they're starting to look towards next season.
Dan.
Maybe you start to stockpile some picks for next season.
Dan, they were given 2 first-round picks.
I'm not saying it makes sense.
Dan.
I'm just saying maybe they're doing that.
Dan, this is a good draft here, bud. And it's a good draft at certain positions that you need here. You don't just say, well, we got Danny Shelton. Good night, everybody. Let's call it a night. Ray Farmer's tired.
I'm just trying to get it. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what they'd be thinking in a trade down. Because you don't need more picks in this draft, do you? I mean, unless you're talking about, I don't know.
You have 10. No, you don't, Dan. That's
I can't think of where you would want more picks in this draft. Maybe Ray Farmer's got a first coming next year. I don't know. Maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he wants to do 2 first-round picks again. Maybe he's just going to keep doing that until he finally wants to pull the trigger and trade up for a quarterback.
Well, it's what New England does.
Yeah.
It's what Seattle used to do. It's what San Francisco used to do. So maybe he does. Look, they're going to continue, Dan, to search for a quarterback until they have an answer. And if you go into every single draft with 2 first-round picks, or a lot of drafts with 2 first-round picks, that's the kind of ammunition that you would need to make a blockbuster trade.
So we'll see if they actually are able to move out of that spot. Again, I don't know why you would. Just because, I mean, what is there to move up for? Unless you're one of these teams that has an early second rounder. No, for someone to move up into 19. What are they moving up to get?
So you'd be looking at a team that would be drafting late, moving up. I think the 2 spots would be an offensive tackle, because I think mid-20s there's going to be a huge run on offensive tackles just because of the number of teams. Detroit at 23 needs an offensive tackle. Arizona at 24, same thing. Carolina 25, same thing. Denver 28, Indianapolis 29. So one of those teams might want to move up for an offensive tackle. And then you've got some pass rushers that are very, very talented. They come with baggage, but they're starting to slide down the board. Dupree is still there. Shane Ray is still there. Randy Gregory is still there. Those would be the 2 positions that I would think if a team wants to move up for. Those are premium positions.
Let's see. Going through some tweets here. How about this for Leonard Williams? In the last 2 seasons, Leonard Williams had 5 sacks when lined up at defensive end, 7 when lined up as defensive tackle, and 1 when lined up as a nose tackle.
So just put him wherever you want to. Like, if Leonard Williams doesn't fit your scheme, you need a new scheme. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So now we are waiting the Chiefs, Eric Armstead, the pick for San Francisco.
Now, wait, I want credit here. In my mock drafts, I want to clear something up. I put Armstead 15 to San Francisco.
No.
He went to San Francisco.
No.
Wait a minute. Come on.
You said 15.
They traded back, though. I got to get like 2 points for that or something like that.
Hold on.
Judges?
2 points. First of all, how many points do you get for a right pick?
I don't know. I'm just making this up on the fly. Let's go with 3.
3?
Sure. I don't know. I don't
give
know
you
the formula here.
I'll give you 1.
5?
I'll give you 1.
You mean 1?
If it's a 3-point scale, I'll give you 1.
See, that's unfair. San Francisco took the guy that I pegged for San Francisco because I knew they were going to take him because he's built to play for the 49ers. You're not giving me credit for that?
No.
Oh, man.
All right, we are going to take a quick
That
break
is
because the Browns are coming
ridiculous.
up. And when we come back, the Browns will be about ready to pick at number 19.